Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of the SMIE Consulting Midweek Roundup. It's Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026, and this week on the Roundup, we're going to be answering 3 questions that we've been hearing from international educators over the last 7 days. And as we do each week, we take the questions that we ask here on Wednesday during the Roundup from our newsletter that comes out on Monday morning. And that newsletter is called All the SMIE News Fit to Share. And in case you're wondering, SMIE is the name of the consulting business, Social Media and International Education Consulting. And we've been coming to you live every Wednesday for the last almost 8 years this summer. We'll be celebrating our 8-year anniversary of the Midweek Roundup. So very proud to have been coming to you for such a long time with over 5,000, actually 5,800 downloads now. I need to update this. Wait till I get my next screenshot from Podbean. But certainly happy to be with you again as we are each Wednesday when I'm at the home office and having a chance to discuss what's been happening in the news on a next level where we can go a little bit deeper into the stories and in terms of what the implications of whatever's being discussed can have on what we do in international education, certainly here in the United States and beyond. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the newsletter, that newsletter comes out Monday morning, typically about 8:30 or 9 o'clock, depending on which version you get. And I'll drop the link to our website in the chat for you, and that's at smieconsulting.org/subscribe, and that's where you'll be able to find the links to subscribe to either version of the newsletter. And it comes again either in an email form, which comes out at 9 a.m. typically. This week was a little bit delayed because I had just gotten back from a week's trip to Brazil, which is, as you'll see, is includes 2 of the topics we'll be discussing today. Drop the email link to this week's edition of the newsletter. You can also subscribe via LinkedIn. Most of my colleagues who get the newsletter each week are getting that through LinkedIn notifications. And this week's newsletter came out again typically about 8:30 a.m. on Monday mornings. So you'll get that notification bell in your LinkedIn notifications, however you get that. But the first story of the day is, what's the state of international recruiting in Brazil? And this is coming, obviously. I just spent a good 9 days in Brazil with attending a couple conference with FOBI, which is kind of Brazil's version of NAFSA, just for Brazilians, and then interested institutions from countries overseas who are looking to partner with Brazilian colleges and universities. Also did while I was there, did a visit with one of our partner institutions, SMIE, based in Florianopolis, but they have campuses across the state of Santa Catarina, and that was a very useful trip to maintain partner relations. We'll be talking about that in question number 2 coming up. But was also spending time with our in-uni global recruitment partner. They have an in-country rep based in Brazil, and fortunately she's based in the city where I was spending a week for this conference. 5 days for the conference, and then about 2 days of recruitment in Floripa and a neighboring city, and then a couple days in Sao Paulo for recruitment, meeting with applicants and admitted students and a few prospective students for this coming fall and beyond. So the state of international recruitment in Brazil right now, what I will say, we've seen the data, particularly the visa data for the last 3 weeks has been getting a lot of attention in the press, so international ed press and beyond. And that data showed that there are 2 areas maybe 3 areas that have better than or less than 1 in 4 visa rejections. The lowest region for visa rejections is Europe. However, it's also the region that has the fewest visa visa applicants. Actually, no, it's not the fewest. I take that back. That'd be Oceania, which is in second place at 20%. But certainly, in terms of public perception of the U.S., Europe is probably, at least certainly Western Europe, is probably has the least favorable in terms of views of the U.S. in terms of interest in coming. We've always had the interest in continued exchange partnerships that have existed for decades with European institutions, but we've certainly seen a drop off in degree-seeking students coming from Europe to study in the United States. But those that do come are getting visas at a very high rate, over 90%, 91% to be correct, in fact, from 2025 numbers, excuse me. And for Oceania, it was 22% visa denial rate, so 78% visa success rate. And then in third place, second place was with only 20% visa denial rate is Latin America. So that is a very positive sign for students. Maybe I take that back. It wasn't Oceania. It was North America that had Canada and Mexico as the second region or the third region in that mix at 22%. So 20% of Latin American students that apply for visas are getting denied. 1 in 5. 1 in 5? 1 in 5, yes. 1 in 5, there's my math skills. All right, so 80% are getting visas in Latin America. So certainly of the major regions, it's certainly the one with volume. Brazil is a top 10 sending country to the United States right now. And if you're in an English language program, they're number 3 after, I think, Vietnam and China for English language programs in the United States. They're the number 3. So we all remember scientific mobility or Science Without Borders that took place during President Lula's first term in office. He launched the scientific mobility program. It had a 5 or 6 year run that sent tens of thousands of Brazilians to the U.S. first for English and then an academic semester. So that program is long since passed, but there's still a legacy interest in coming to the United States for short-term study for English. Summer programs are certainly still busy, but starting to see pick back up in undergraduate and graduate recruitment for interest in Brazil for the United States. And Shadan, thanks for getting on and sharing your concerns about visa refusal. Certainly that is. Talking specifically about Brazil right now, but other parts of the world, when these stories came out last couple of weeks, we were talking about how in India we know it's almost only 1 in 3 are getting visas. That's a very, very harsh state of affairs. In Nepal, it's even worse. I think it's only 1 in 5 is getting a visa, if that. So very significantly concerning rates, visa rates in other countries, in major sending countries. Certainly Nepal and India are certainly in the top 5. And we're certainly not looking forward to getting this fall's numbers, because right now it's not looking too promising to beat the last year's numbers. But I am holding out hope that there was a month last summer where there were no visa appointments happening at all during the summer months. And hopefully that will just be a default to allow for more volume to come through this year. So we'll see what the case may be. But certainly we're looking at hopefully a rebound. But most folks tend to be pessimists at this point, given everything else that's happened this year. But in Brazil, it's one of the few countries that is fairly pro-U.S. And certainly the mood of the folks that I was talking to, I met largely with graduate prospects and applicants. In fact, met with a family. There's 4 of them, 2 sisters who are both married and are planning to, the older sister has applied and been accepted already for the fall, is about to go for her visa appointment, but is waiting on her husband. to finish his, to get a passable Duolingo score so he can come as well to study. She wants to do a master's in English because he's a TESOL teacher. He wants to study a business master's program, probably information systems, business analytics. So he's seeing that. They've both already applied. Her younger sister and her husband are also thinking of coming for degrees. She's a chemical engineer. So really excited about the possibilities. If we have one or two of these come, then we may have four within very short order just from one family. So very excited about that. But in terms of the interest, it's real. They're asking the kinds of questions about visas that certainly is on everybody's mind right now. They're asking about the cost of living. They're asking about return on investment. They're asking the kinds of questions that you would expect given the political environment. This is something that has always been, and the political environment question has always been part of the dynamic that has existed in kind of the tension between countries around the world whose citizens might want to come here and study to the U.S. and the politics of the leadership that might be in power at the time. And the reality is, if the students that come to our campuses and who get to campus and are living in our communities, are participating in our events, are treated well. And that's our jobs as administrators, as university representatives, to make sure that the students that come to our campuses are having the best possible experience, that are getting the training they need during their time on campus to get ready for that next step. And I think that's ultimately, we used to say, you can hate the politics, but love the country. And that's certainly, I think, still holds truth for a lot of students outside, that they may not agree with the country's leadership or the politics and the directions and decisions, but they still have a desire to be here and study. And I know some of my colleagues will say those spirits have been dampened, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They certainly have taken a hit in the last year and may continue to take hits. But for those that see the end of that process, see the end of why they're coming in the first place, that if that overrides any concerns that they have, and they press on and go through go over the hurdles that our government creates for students, the way it exists now, to prove that they're not an immigrant, to prove that they can fund their studies, and prove that they have a plan to come back, and that they know why they're going to the university they're going to. So, but I can say fairly confidently that in Brazil, though there are concerns, I think the interest is still very high for the United States. And I think it's a place where I know there is our partner in uni. As I mentioned, they have an in-country rep there. They've prioritized Brazil for us and the other U.S. institutions they're recruiting for, having this one person who is in country who can be an extension of me. And I'm one person doing international recruitment for the University of Akron, and we don't have. I'm the only one doing it, so I have to rely on our representatives in country. In the past, we'd had 30 or 40 agents that were doing their own thing and representing us at their own events, but the reality was that we weren't getting a lot of traction with many of them. We weren't able to go visit and be with them in country, because they were many in some of the same locations, same destination country sources. But we now see within uni they have a great ground game in country. They're attending Education USA Roadshow events. They're going to individual schools. While I was there, we did a visit at international school, an IB school north of Florianopolis, that we spoke to 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, all doing our 11th and 12th in IB diploma, and the others looking forward to getting into it. We did a morning session for students. We had about 50 students in the room, and then in the evening we held a session for parents, not only from that school but others in the area, and had great questions from parents about studying in the U.S., and their focus was on outcomes. And they wanted to know what their sons or daughters were going to graduate with. And we can do that very easily for some of our programs. In engineering and business, we can make the ROI question very palatable for families. Where for the University of Akron, we could take a $160,000 bachelor's degree all-in cost for 4 years, total cost for a bachelor's degree, tuition and fees, living expenses, health insurance, books and supplies, everything. And we can then break that down as a sticker price, pitch that as that's the sticker price, and parents understand sticker price when they go looking for cars and they negotiate. But there's not really negotiation necessarily with overall cost of the university, but there are ways that those fees can be reduced, or that cost can be reduced out in terms of out-of-pocket expenses. And what we talked about very clearly and with great effect was that a high-achieving international student coming into our College of Engineering and Polymer Science, where there's a mandatory co-op, they can work on campus the first 2 years, up to 20 hours a week. In those 2 years, they can earn from an on-campus job approximately $8,000 per year, $10 an hour, 20 hours a week roughly, over a 40-week academic year. And there's $16,000 off that cost to help offset the total cost that the students or parents would have to pay out of pocket. There's also merit scholarships. They can get merit scholarship for top achieving students, $5,000 automatically, apply to our honors college, and then potentially get another $2,500 per year. That's $7,500 a year over 4 years. That's $30,000 more. So that's over just scholarships and work in the first 2 years, and then 4-year scholarships. They can get $46,000 off their cost. So it brings the total cost down from $160,000 down to $117. No. Ooh, math is not my strong suit. But let's see, we're taking $30,000 plus $16,000, $46,000 off $160, so down to $114. Yes, $114. Then they begin their co-op program in their third year, where starting in their third year, they alternate semesters, work, school, work, school, work, school, work, school. So over that last period of time to finish their degree, they will get a year's worth of paid work experience, where there is 100% placement for our co-op students. They will earn, on average, at the 3 placements that they'll have in that year of work, $47,000. So subtract that $47,000 of earnings from their co-op. You're going to take that 114 price down to $67,000 for a 4-year bachelor's degree in engineering from an ABET accredited program. So $67,000 for that is a much more palatable out-of-pocket expense for families as opposed to $160. And when you can break it down like that and not tell them you're not paying everything up front, you pay your deposit for the first semester. For if you're coming through in uni, you pay that deposit, and then that's your first semester paid for tuition. Then you break it down even further to minus the scholarships, minus the work, minus the co-op, and you see the net effect is you're taking almost $100,000 off the total cost of the degree by the work that you do and by the scholarships that you might earn from the university. So that's an ROIP question and answer that makes a lot of sense for families. So for us in Brazil, that was resonating very highly. We were talking also to students looking at graduate business programs, where we've configured that degree so they can do it in 1 calendar year. Fall 12 credits, spring 12 credits, 6 credits in the summer, 30 credit AACSB accredited business college that they can do that master's degree for $50,000 all in 1 year of work, 1 year of schooling and expenses, and then have with those programs OPT opportunity. 4 out of the 5 master's in business programs we have are STEM designated, so they can work for up to 3 years. Starting salaries are in Ohio, starting salaries anywhere from $65,000 to $105,000 a year. So in 1 year of work, they will, and potentially having 3 years, they will have paid back their initial investment. So potentially 2 more years on top of that is good ROI, good outcomes, good career possibilities for our students. So that's what I think is resonating most clearly in Brazil right now, and is that that career outcomes, those ROI on the degree, and that certainly opportunity to work, opportunity to be in a place like Akron, lower cost of living in the Midwest, certainly friendly campus, and inviting campus, and talking up the kinds of things that are much valued in the United States that perhaps they don't know is important, but once they get to the U.S., they certainly value it. So, involving our alumni, one thing I was able to find out from this trip, our in-country rep, Fran, she was able to do the Education USA roadshows and met with a recent graduate of the University of Akron. 10 years ago, he graduated in business, in marketing, and now is thinking about coming back for a master's degree. And she was able to capture him, some video of him talking about his experience on campus. We've had actually a steady stream of Brazilians on campus, so in engineering as well as business. So we're seeing some good traction with their testimonials, with their feedback that they're providing about their experiences, and that's something we need to lean into as much as we can. So if you can provide quality outcomes and you can demonstrate ROI, and you have the students, recent graduates, current students, recent graduates that can help share their stories, you're golden. That's going to make all the difference in the world in Brazil. For those that aren't relying on agents and are perhaps doing more regular school visits and that type of thing, tours to the country, certainly plenty of providers that are active now in Brazil. I know I'm also on a WhatsApp group for international schools and U.S. and other nations, countries, university reps that might be interested in visiting those schools, and that has over 400 members on that. So there's a heavy interest in Brazil, not just from the U.S. but from around the world. So it's a competitive market, but if you've got a foothold already, then you certainly need to be in country and start taking advantage of it. Now, let's move on to the second question of the day, and that is, how does the Global South want to partner with the North now? Now, this is a very intriguing concept. I know my good friend and colleague Fanta Aub, Executive Director and CEO of NAFSA, has been saying this for a couple, 3 years now, but certainly since she's been in the role, and certainly has believed it long before that, that partnerships between U.S. institutions, and not just U.S., but your major Western powers and the Global South, have tended to be one-way conversations. We'll take your students and they'll come to us, and maybe we'll do some research, but don't expect a whole lot of our students going to you because you're the Global South. That's kind of been the attitude from a lot of colleges over the last couple decades, 3 decades, but I think that's changing, and certainly needs to change. We are certainly at a point now where, when it comes to research, we certainly are seeing increased competition from other countries for research interests and interest in partnerships. In fact, our one partnership I mentioned with Unisanat in Brazil, that came out of previous relationship I had with that institution at my last university, UNLV. And we continued that because I developed a personal relationship with my equivalent person there, and that allowed for this new partnership to develop with Akron. We've already had a couple of their faculty on our campus, one from their mechanical engineering department and one from food science, that was coming to meet part of another program our College of Business runs called LAOBI, which gives executives in Brazil and working professionals a chance to come to the U.S. for 2 to 3 weeks to experience kind of a research-based opportunity to talk with the institute, talk with leaders in their field and related fields in the U.S., and set up potential opportunities for research and interactions. So we've been doing that program for a number of years, and have had, as part of this program, one came on their own from a conference in Detroit. They stopped on campus and initiated some personal relationships with our faculty in our mechanical engineering college program, and then also now that's led to some initial research opportunities between our 2 campuses. And that's the kind of initial research we're doing, but we're also looking at potential T&E with these partners too, in Brazil, in Indonesia, in India, in the Gulf, perhaps someday in Africa, but looking at opportunities to deliver our programs on their campuses where we're delivering a top-ranked program to them in their country, where they can use that as a recruitment tool for their institution, expand their international footprint and their reach beyond their initial catchment area. So I think Global South now, the idea of mutual beneficial relationships is critical. I know that in Brazil especially, they are being courted from folks from many different countries. There were folks from Portugal there. Obviously, that made sense. There was folks from Catalonia in Spain that were there. There were U.S. schools, about 5 or 6 U.S. schools that were there, so not a huge presence. But we know they're being recruited by other members of other countries as well that have had developed relationships from Australia, from the UK, from Canada, have partnerships there. How those partnerships are developing and whether they're mutually beneficial and setting up to be two-way, that's I don't know, have all that, but certainly that's the advice that we're getting. And the theme of this conference was also very interesting, and my colleagues in the U.S. will appreciate this. Apparently it came from members of FOBI that had gone to the EAIA conference in Europe the last 3 years, and they came up with the conference theme for this one in Brazil, internationalization in a multipolar world. Now, multipolar is more of a geopolitical term. It used to be a bipolar world between the U.S. and USSR. Then post-fall of the Soviet Union, it was a unipolar world, and then until China rose up, and then it's maybe a bipolar world again. But now it's kind of the West, a bunch of countries in the West, U.S. obviously leading, and versus China and BRICS countries. Brazil is obviously part of BRICS. There was a whole stream of sessions on BRICS, on the relationships that they are developing internally. I can speak from anyone who's been in Brazil will certainly appreciate this. I've been in Saudi Arabia too, that's about to join BRICS, but India, you see it less so from China, but China has a huge footprint in Brazil. They have, ironically, bought up a lot of farmland in Brazil. Remember that? That's happening in the U.S. too, or was until this administration cracked down. But China has a number of their electric cars, BYDs especially, dealerships are around there. There's Brazil-China stores, even on an island like Floripa, that's more of a tourist destination, but a quieter place, off the beaten path, kind of a place. They are very engaged, and partnerships with universities are also expanding from the Global South to the Global South. But they're also looking at many different destinations. So it's not just the U.S. anymore. It never really was, but for Brazil. But there's certainly, for institutions, there is a little bit of a draw to be more international, which is good. And that means that many of them are. It's not really in a coordinated manner yet, like with the India's NEP policy that has kind of mandated internationalization for its institutions. That's not really happened in Brazil, and there's certainly no coordinating body that is responsible for that. Followed by, we'll have surveys, but not really anything in terms of a legal control over that. So we'll see what happens there. But Global South is a different beast, and they are increasingly aware of their power and their future representation and their need for partnerships to be truly bilateral. And if someone comes to you with a one-way and they just want to send students to you, and that's fine too. They may be just trying to raise their profile that way because they need some pipelines for their students for grad programs. That's fine. There'll be a few of those still, even in this climate. But if you're serious about partnerships, be looking in a bilateral way, in mutual beneficial ways as you set those up, and in terms of how you approach potential partners. So, last question of the day: can we have, excuse me, can we have a strategic international plan anymore? And why do I say that? We know. When we're asked by leadership, what are the numbers looking like for this fall? Many of us in international ed have to stop, particularly if we're in person getting that request, stop from rolling our eyes, because it is the most, certainly in the last year or two, has become the hardest question to ever answer, and one that in its best case scenario, given everything that happened last year, given the situation with social media vetting, given the visa strictness that's being imposed that is outside of any of our controls in terms of our ability to influence visa policy or for our students when they're going for visa appointments. Certainly we do what we can, but oftentimes our students are caught up in the what's the kind way to say it, caught up in the change that's going on, and where standards that used to be acceptable are no longer what is required for students to pass muster for visas. So the idea of strategic planning, like particularly when it comes to yield, but also when it comes to what countries you can recruit in and want to recruit in and focus on. My friend Greg Holtz at Central Missouri University has come up in his recent blog last week. Really talks about the changing nature of what we do in diversification to focus and back again for our planning, our recruitment strategies. His approach, he's really a road warrior. He's out there all the time and it really has some good insights. He's using AI quite successfully in terms of how he's managing his time, how he's managing his data, how he's getting senior leadership buy-in. So a lot of great things happening with him. But looking forward to checking in with him at NAFSA at the end of next month. But and we have a meeting of the Brotherhood of Bling, my fellow Bob brother. We're looking forward to. But Greg and I. He's a younger guy, a family guy as well. He's getting out quite a bit. He talks in his most recent blog about the plan always breaks. Why does it always break? Because things change, and change more than usual in the last couple of years. That where you can travel may change. So we've seen with the travel ban countries, we now know that we can't go to half of Africa for student recruitment because they can't get in. We know that our strategic interests in going to certain parts of the world, like South Asia, where India is now with 2 out of 3 students being denied visas, that makes it really hard to justify trips, but we need to keep going. In terms of numbers, the predictability of it has certainly gone out the window. Filling the top of the funnel with quantity of applications was never really the solution to our enrollment woes, to grow numbers. But you certainly see now. We were told in the mid-teens that the China wave that had kind of overwhelmed a lot of U.S. colleges, and where it was kind of just free students coming in and ones they didn't really have to work too hard to get. But that gravy train ended, certainly ended by the time COVID came, but it was already tailing off. Chinese students were starting to look at other countries and had more options. The growing number of graduating students was declining, all of that. A lot of economic issues involved, and the pandemic certainly accelerated all of that. Students began staying closer to home. They're flooding into Hong Kong, into Southeast Asia, into Korea, other countries in the region, also other European destinations that were courting them heavily. Australia was courting them heavily. So there were other options. That gravy train ended even for them, and is beginning to end for certainly Australia with China. UK is certainly seeing a drop off. So we are seeing more choosy students that are looking at destinations that they wouldn't have been 4 or 5 years ago, and are applying to multiple countries now because of the visa uncertainty that they're experiencing. So to predict yield for international student recruitment at this point it's in this administration, it is a vast unknown, and I think we're always going to be under pressure to get good data to our leadership. But at this point, We focus on low-hanging fruit, frankly. Focus on quality over quantity in your recruitment. Focus on focused recruitment, and that's certainly part of what Greg's message was this past week. Is that we know we need to diversify so that when one country drops off the map, like Iran, like Nigeria have, top 20 sending countries that we now can't recruit from, at least directly from their home countries or diaspora countries, they can't come to the U.S. anymore under this administration, given the travel bans. But we'll see what's happened in Venezuela. That might be changing. Venezuela might be off the travel ban list in a couple of years because we've gotten our embassy reopened in Caracas. So we'll see. Nothing's permanent, but the administrations aren't permanent. This one will be done in 2.5 years, but we'll see what comes next. But I know for us at the University of Akron, international strategic planning has to be a campus-wide effort in terms of making sure we're delivering on services to our current students before we go out actively recruiting more from a wide range of countries that may or may not be ready for us, or we may not be ready for them. So this is all part of the question of can we strategically plan anymore? Certainly any plan we make now will be revised and cannot be set in stone. And the best plans certainly are never that way. They have to be flexible. They have to be out clauses and opportunities to shift focus if need be. And that's a state of constant readiness that we need to be in. And I certainly know it's probably the most challenging time we've ever had in our field, with given all the slings and arrows of outrageous political decisions that are being made that don't always rarely factor international education in as a priority. So we'll see what happens with funding and other things down the road with our government and with our exchange partners and all of that. But looking forward to future conversations and wish you all the very best, and we'll be in touch in the next week. Take care.